Hello, I'm Joe, and this month on the Indie Bandits podcast, I'm joined by Jimmy and Archie, and we'll be talking about some of the indie games that we've been playing this month.
So this month I've been playing Slay the Spire by Mega Crit Games, available on all consoles. It's a very simple game. You pick a character at the start, you can only pick one. You pick that character and your objective is to try and get as far as you can before you die.
Do you unlock more characters later?
You can once you've gotten through levels. So you pick your character, you have a small deck of cards, which is your abilities to use in the battles. As you go further through the game and defeat more enemies, you unlock more cards, you can buy items to improve your character. At the end of a level, you fight a boss character. If you beat that boss character, you move on to the next level, and you just keep going until you die. When you die, you get experience, and that unlocks new characters with different play styles to go through the game. And it's very basic. There's not much to sort of write home about in terms of the looks of the game. I think it's pretty average, but the style of the game and the fast pace of the game and the sort of replayability of the game makes it, for me, a lot of fun. And the strategy of it as well, so using your deck in the best and most effective way to defeat the various enemies that you come across was quite rewarding.
So how does it work? So you've got like cards, and they've all got their different like levels on or attacks or something like that, and they're just compared against the other cards. Is that how it works? Because I know very little about deck building games. Or
yeah, I mean I did before I played this game, but essentially you have a hand of cards. Every turn, every one of your turns, a randomized selection of those cards comes out. You use whichever cards you think would be best to use for that round, and any cards you don't use, once you've run out of energy, each card costs a certain amount of energy to use. Once you've run out of energy, any cards that haven't been played that round are shuffled into your discard pile, and then you just go through, and it's randomized. There are certain ways of mitigating the randomization with different abilities and stuff, but essentially it's randomized. And yeah, the idea is as you go through the game and collect cards, you've got to really think about the type of cards you want to collect for the play style that you're going for. And when it comes to the battles, there's a certain amount of strategy. But as I alluded to in the review, sometimes luck can play much too big a role. And you could be up against a boss character who tends to deal a lot more damage, and you might not be dealt any defense cards. And that boss just happens to be doing a huge amount of damage that turn, because one thing I didn't mention is you have an insight into what each of the enemies is going to do next turn. So you'll know if they're going to buff themselves, if they're going to use a defense themselves, if they're going to attack you next turn. And it could be one of those situations where the boss character is going to just do a ridiculous amount of damage, and you actually have been dealt no way of defending yourself that turn, and then when your turn ends, the guy does his attack and you are just destroyed.
Okay.
So basically your run can be over before it's even started if you get a less than ideal hand.
You're not going to lose to the early enemies, even if you dealt a bad hand. They're just too weak, but once you start playing the elite enemies or the boss level, you can easily be taken out by just two turns of bad luck.
Oh, really? Does that ruin it, though, like, when that comes up?
I think if it wasn't for the fact that the point of the game is just to get as far as you can get experience and unlock new stuff, I think it would be annoying. But the fact that you can just jump straight back into it really quickly and start a new round and go off, it's not that annoying.
Okay.
You just dive straight back into it.
Just jump straight back in. You'll have gotten some experience. You'll have unlocked a new character, unlocked new cards that are put into the game, new items, and then you just go again.
I was going to say, is there like a narrative like attached to it at all, or is it just purely like just about building this deck? Like,
from what I could see, there is like barely any exposition or world building or narrative in this. It seems to me that you are one of 4 mysterious warriors who is, for some reason, is trying to climb this spire to defeat these enemies and do something at the end of the game. And the level design has a certain style to it, and the characters have a certain style to it. So I guess there's a little bit of world building there. It has a certain look to it. Other than that, there's really very, very little that tells you anything about it. But as I said in the review as well, that's not really why I was enjoying it. I didn't really care about any of that sort of stuff. I just wanted to run through and enjoy the game, playing various different enemies and trying to come up with different strategies to win.
Okay.
So the world and the narrative doesn't really matter.
I usually only enjoy games when they have a bit more to them in terms of the substance side of things, but in this one I was just enjoying it for the simplicity and strategic gameplay.
It sounds like a lot of people can overlook how little it has in terms of narrative and world building for gameplay, and I mean, personally I'm the kind of player who can do that. I don't have to see like games as art or anything like that. Games can be dumb and simple and stupid, or just fun. Yeah. And if at the end of the day, if they're fun, and my time with them was worthwhile, then I'm not bothered.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Only use what you need for your game. If you know what I mean. If your game is a narrative-based game, obviously don't spend a lot of time building that. It's all about mechanics, and that's what you want your game to be about. Obviously, put your focus in there. It seems like from what you're saying, James, that's kind of what they've done anyway. Like they've narrative light, but kind of, I guess, entertainment.
I think they're just
heavy.
Yeah, they focused on making a game that's fun to play and rewarding to play, and then, you know, maybe didn't have much left in the tank to sort of come up with this really in-depth story with these sort of amazingly designed characters. And, you know, when I say that it doesn't have style, I'm not saying like it looks crap. It looks absolutely fine. Like it is. There's nothing wrong with the way it looks. It just doesn't blow me away like Katana did. I thought that looked immense. You know, that had a really cool style to it. This isn't so strong on the style, but it's absolutely fine. And there's very little substance. But again, that's not why I was wanting to play or enjoying playing the game. So it's absolutely fine. You can go past those.
Would you play it if it was an actual card game? Would it work as an actual
honestly,
card game? Because
playing this game has actually made me want to look into a deck building card game.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed the idea of building a strategy behind selecting certain cards and playing certain cards and seeing certain attacks and skills like stack to do the most damage and all that sort of stuff. It was a really rewarding element of the game, so I probably would actually. Yeah.
Is it easy enough just to dive in quickly, understand it, and just like start playing it like properly?
No, it's really simple. You jump in, click your character, and off you go. And it's really obvious what you need to do. It's really obvious how the game works. And the really good thing is you can control the whole game on a laptop trackpad.
Oh, it sounds good.
You don't need like specific equipment to play this game. Like you can use it on the most bare. You can play this game on the most bare bones laptop around.
Well, would it work on a smaller device? Like, do you think or do you think it would just be best suited for like playing at home on your desktop, laptop, or iPad?
You could definitely play it on mobile.
Okay, if it's available, like that'd be cushy. I wouldn't mind checking it out. Like,
I've just looked it up. I don't think it is.
It certainly wouldn't lose any. Like you wouldn't be like, oh man, they've had to sacrifice a certain element of this game. Like the gameplay itself would apply to mobile really well.
Okay. Anything more to add to that, James?
I'd just jump into it and have a go. It's good fun.
So I've been playing Eliza, and if you know what a visual novel is, then you've basically understood what this game is, and the weight of a visual novel is on how good the novel is. So this is about a woman who starts working for an AI counseling machine, which is basically a chatbot. But because people are creeped out about getting counseling sessions from a chatbot, they have people employed as proxies who are there to read out what the chatbot suggests them to say. So counseling sessions are replaced by counseling sessions with a chatbot with a human present to say the lines of dialogue and not deviate from the script, basically. And so this is the premise, and I'm enjoying it. It's very different to what I usually play, because for me, gameplay is about 90% of why I enjoy a game, and everything else is just icing. If I don't enjoy how a game feels, then it's very difficult for me to get into it. And a visual novel is very much just keep clicking. You're just clicking dialogue options and clicking dialogue to run through.
Is there any puzzles involved with this? Because I know a lot of visual novels usually like compensate the story against like the odd puzzle here and there. It's usually very puzzle light, but yeah, a way to break up the reams and reams of text. Like
There is a mini version of a weird Japanese version of Solitaire that sidetracked me from getting any further in the game for a long time because I just got hooked on this version of Solitaire, and I don't know if it's a real version of Solitaire or it's one that exists just for this game, which is a nice distraction from reading all the text. And it's not the whole amount of text that really gets me. Like the story's really engaging. Like I do like reading the story, and it's narrated as well for the most part, so you can just listen to the audio.
Have you got to be in the mood to play this game, I guess?
Yeah, it's definitely not pick up and play.
No.
You've got to come and you've got to make yourself ready to immerse yourself in this world, which is sort of grim and sad, and the whole premise revolves around the fact that your main character has a past that you're going to unravel, in also a world where it seems everyone's very shallow and uncaring. So it's like one of these like downer games.
yeah,
And you need to be in a very specific mood to play it.
I was to say, it feels like the opposite of what I was just saying then for Slay the Spire. It's very heavy on the story and the look of it, but not so much on the gameplay.
Yes, it feels like the antithesis of Slay the Spire. When all your criticisms of Slay the Spire, this game has in spades.
Okay.
Right.
Like you're saying, this has no narrative, it has no world building. Eliza is all narrative, all world building. Literally, there seems to not be a line of text that's wasted.
Okay.
It's all there to paint a picture, but gameplay is just clicking.
Right. I mean, that's essentially all it is in Slay the Spire as well.
No, but it's not even like where you click. It's just clicking
Right,
and then
okay, yeah.
select. Like there's not much thinking involved. You have like 1 or 2 or 3 dialogue choices occasionally.
is it handled with care? Like you're saying, it's about these big heavy themes and all that, but are they written well, or is it?
It is. There was right from the get go. There is actually a small amount of comedy in it.
Okay.
Where you're given the job as this proxy, whose your job is to just read what this program tells you to say and say it back to the person in counseling who's talking to you. And your very first patient tells you to go off script,
Okay.
and the AI generates an off script response to you, and then you just read that out anyway. So the guy goes, I want to speak to a real human, and then the AI generates a script that says, you are speaking to a real human, this is me talking to you now, and it's still not. And that irony I found very funny.
Okay.
But after that point, once it had made its point about the fact that even when you're trying to pretend to be a human on behalf of this AI that gives people mental health advice.
So I've played a couple of visual novels before, like, and the problem is, like, even if they do like have a compelling narrative, and this one does sound like interesting to me, but it's just the fact that I don't really understand why they are a game. If you know why are they interactive when the interactive interactions are so light? Why aren't they like a graphic novel, or why are they not just like a short story?
Could you not just read the book?
Yeah, like I love point and click adventure games. I think they're great, and I play a lot of games like that are very kind of like mechanic light and just about the story. But when I talk about the game I've been playing, there's very little stuff in there, but it's like just enough to kind of like punctuate everything. And from the visual novels, is that what they're called? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just
A visual novel.
always feel like that is like lacking in that extra little thing to push you along, if you know what I mean. Like Until Dawn is like a game which is like, I guess, a point and click visual novel movie, but it gives you enough to kind of like, just play along and enjoy it. While if what you're saying is the way I'm thinking it, I always just think these are like just too light on too many things. Even if the story is very good, it's just like I just don't understand why these are interactive in the way that, why are they not just a comic book or like a short story?
Like, if you weren't doing it for this, if you weren't, playing that game for the purposes of us doing this and doing the reviews and stuff, would you have decided to play a game like that?
No, not at all. This is for me, it's a hard recommendation, but it's not a bad game.
Has it swayed your opinion on these type of games then?
Would you pick up another one based on having played this one now?
It would have to be a very specific topic. Like, the reason I was happy to play this one is because it ticks the boxes for the kind of narrative I want, and I'm very interested in games that, one, are sci-fi, because I'll eat up anything that's sci-fi no matter how garbage it is, and two, anything that covers mental health issues, which I think games, if they do want to be taken seriously as art, do need to start including
Heavier topics, like
heavier topics, but tackling heavier topics, not just including them, because there's a lot of things that just include things for the sake that they feel they have to in order of legitimacy. But it seems tastefully done, and I do know it's a huge departure for the studio as well, because it's made by Zachtronics. And if you haven't heard of Zachtronics, basically most of their games previously have been really nails puzzle games.
Oh, really? And now they've done like a narrative-heavy, puzzle-less game. Like,
would you recommend it to someone to pick it up, or?
If you're into that kind of game, definitely. It's if you like visual novels, I assume it's probably one of the best.
But is it sort of specific to people who probably do have an interest in that?
I think if you have an interest in visual novels, then you'll probably love it. It's probably one of the better ones. If you don't, then you're going to have to be like me and have an interest in every topic it's covering. If you don't like the sci-fi kind of stuff, or you don't like narratives about mental health, then you're going to have little interest in it. If you like all the opposites of those things, like, don't even try. It's going to be a long punt.
okay.
And it's going to be hard to recommend to outsiders.
How many beers?
It's 3 or 4. It's 12 euros. I don't know what's that in pounds. 10.
About a tenner, yeah.
Oh, less than 3 beers.
Okay, cool.
So what have you been playing this month, Archie?
Well, I played a short hike, and I think, talking about it will be relatively short as well. It's very true to its name, this game. I think the closest thing you could probably compare it to is like a walking simulator, but it has, a little touch of like some platform elements in it. It's definitely really cute. But essentially, what the game's about, you play as like you're in this wilderness, very like small contained environment, and your play is like you play as a little bird, and all the critters in this little wilderness are animals themselves. You play a bird called Claire, I believe it was, and the entire crux of the story is that she needs to get to the top of the mountain so she can get mobile phone reception to receive a phone call she's been waiting on. And that's all I'll say. And
that's cute.
It's very cute, and that's all the story is, and it's basically your hike from, like sea level all the way to the top, and she's on holiday, she's taking some time out. And as you, and the way you climb the mountain is you collect like golden feathers, and golden feathers allow you to fly for a bit longer. So you can do a double jump, and each feather you have allows you to do like an extra one, as far as I can remember. And they allow you to climb higher in certain climbing sections, and they allow you to glide as well. But you can glide at any point in the game. It's essentially a power up it's your stamina bar. You collect your stamina bar through the entire game, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And there's other things you can buy, like you can buy a shovel to dig at certain points of the game for other items. You can collect gold coins, and that's how you acquire other things. I'm trying to think what some of the other items were. You collect stuff which basically just builds up your stamina, and you collect other items which allow you to kind of like get other things as well. You can buy like a fishing rod. It allows you to fish, and you can sell the fish to this other fella. But it's all very, very light. You don't need to do most of these other things. You don't need to go fishing, and so on. So,
do any of these items block your progression? Are there any things that are like essential to collect, or are they just shortcuts?
The only thing that is essential to collect is the gold feathers, because you do come at points where because you can climb any surface in the game. But in order to do that, you need to increase your feather collection, because when you're climbing, those feathers decrease over time, and when they decrease, you fall to the bottom, and they immediately recharge. So the more feathers you got, the higher you can climb, essentially.
So you're extending your stamina bar.
Exactly.
Basically, with feathers.
Collect a stamina bar. But as you're going through this, you talk to some of the other critters, and you really like want to talk to all of them, because they just all say something like very cute and funny at the same time, and they have their own things. There's one character you talk to, there's a bunch of them, like a tortoise, frog, and so on, doing a jog through the woods, and they're just doing this loop. But you talk to one of them who's missing their lucky headband, and they're like, "Oh, will you find my lucky headband? And if you do, I'll give you a feather," and something to that effect. But you find another guy, you find one of the other runners who's wearing a headband. You talk to him, and he says, "Oh, I heard, you said him, sorry, like, oh, so-and-so's lost their headband," and he will give you his because it looks identical. But it's something like when you give it back to the original person, it's like she feels like she doesn't need it anymore, and that doesn't sound too exciting, but when you play it, it is very sweet. You find some people who are playing this version of tennis that they've called, like, ball stick or something like that, and you're like, how do you win? And it's like, oh, no individual wins, we win together, because the more times you throw the ball over the net, that accumulates points, and the more points we get, we win. And it's just like...
So it's really cutesy then.
Yeah, it's super cute and silly, and true to its name, A Short Hike is incredibly short. It's I clocked in at like 93 minutes.
93 minutes?
It's like an hour, that's literally an hour and a half.
And was that like... It sounds like you can do the game and get through it quite quick, but if you'd maybe take on some of these extra little world-building side quest things, you can maybe make the game last a bit longer.
A little bit longer. You could probably get another half an hour out of it. I could be wrong
so
about
it's
that,
super
but
short then.
I was actively going out my way to talk to each of these characters just because what they were saying was so funny. Like, everything, it's very cute, it's very silly, incredibly sweet.
So is it well written?
I think so. Like, I don't want to, like, say too much about what was written, because I'd rather people just go out and, like, see for themselves, so there's that surprise of, like, oh, that is cute, that is funny, you know? It'll make you chuckle with every interaction you have, I think.
And it looks good as well.
The art style's got this kind of... Do you remember, like, the early, like, DS games? Where it's, like, this minimalist 3D, but there's this kind of...
Yeah.
I don't even know how...
Like
this
low poly.
Low poly, kind of not... I don't want to say, like, grainy, but the textures are, like, low resolution as well, but they're, like, balanced in such a way that it just looks appealing, if you know what I mean. It's kind of like an old 3D, but it just helps the game. Like, it looks great, and it complements the world you're in and the characters and the critics you're talking to. And, I mean... I loved it. I just had such a fun time playing, and an hour and a half, like, I just, why not just invest some time into it and have a whack? It's very sweet, it's very quick to play, the writing's incredibly well done, it's very funny, it's cute, and there's no, you get to the, not to spoil it, but the end is just what you would expect, if you know what I mean. There's no, like, grandiose, like, you've done this big feat. It's just like, oh, yeah, you get there.
There you go.
Like, it's just cute.
How easy is it to play, Archie? Is it a very simple game to pick up and play?
Incredibly easy. It is like,
Oh.
I'd be surprised if anyone couldn't pick up and play this. You move a joystick, your joystick moves the character. It's simple to understand. You immediately, like, know what you need to do. And there's a few times that, like, obviously the gameplay comes into it that obviously you get to points in the game where you need to get more of those feathers. So it encourages you to go back to find them, because there are some scattered around the environment. So it makes you go, but also to talk to the characters to see if they've got one and if you could get one of them. So
there's exploration and side quests in it.
Yeah, to a certain degree. But the side quests are like the main missions. You could see them in inverted commas.
Is it a game that people who don't regularly play games can play?
The only thing that might prevent somebody who isn't familiar with games is there is a certain openness to it, and I feel if you're not familiar with kind of like just you don't have that like
game language.
Yeah, that game language to just go in and explore. Eventually you'll come back to where you were before, kind of thing. That might throw you off, but the game is small enough that I don't think that will be much of a problem for most people. Like,
so there's not many things telling you where to go.
No, it's up to you.
It's not. It doesn't breadcrumb you to places.
Not at all. But it's not large enough to get lost. Like wherever you're going is more or less going to point you in the right direction.
Right.
It's not a world to get lost in. It's just a world to enjoy.
Yeah, pretty much. It's very, very cute.
Would the short runtime put people off, do you reckon?
I think not, because the game is only a $5. Had the game been more expensive than that, had the game been a $10, I would probably say yes. But it depends what you want to get out of a game. Like, I'm not somebody who's really that bothered about a long runtime. If you want a long game, I mean, if you're into that, like, this isn't that, like, at all. but this is an incredibly short game. But out of £5, you get an hour and a half. You can go to the cinema, you can see a film that would be an hour and a half for more or less the same price. Like, so that's the way I was looking at it. So I don't really value games on their length. I'm more about what I got out of it personally. And I think
quality over quantity.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I think this game ends when it should. It didn't actually. No, I wanted a little bit more, but it was just like, no, this is just a nice little complete piece of work. Never outstays its welcome. And yeah, and when you're like me, if you're somebody like my age who's like busy quite a lot of the time, something that's an hour and a half is actually quite welcome in a an industry that usually the average running time. I mean, these days, depending. I mean, it's like 60 out of 20 hours, even like 6 to 8 hours is quite a lot of time to invest in something. The fact that I could just sit down and play this in an hour and a half and just be done with it was like, you know what? Fantastic.
Yeah.
For me, it's just exactly what I need when I'm, when you're busy and you've got a 9 to 5, you're doing your day-to-day job on top of a bunch of other things. If you want something very quick, very fun, very sweet, I think you'll remember this more than you'll remember most games, because I think it really does stand out.
So, I'd like to know which of the ones you didn't play, because it's a 50-50 choice, that you would actually play. Maybe we can come to a consensus on what sounds like our game of the month.
Of the two, I'd probably play A Short Hike. I think when it comes down to it, when I play games, I want to actually feel like I'm playing a game. And whilst the concept of the other one sounds really interesting, I'm sure the story, as you said, the world building's really good, I'd struggle to ever be in the mood to go on the computer to play a game that is essentially just following along a story. Mm-hmm. I'd rather actually play a game, and for that reason I'd probably pick A Short Hike out of the two if a gun to my head choice.
That sounds fair. I mean, I feel Eliza would be absolutely amazing if it was on mobile. Like, this is the kind of thing where I could sit and just click through on my phone. Mm-hmm. And you, Archie, you have to pick Eliza or Slay the Spire.
Do you know what? I'm gonna say Eliza, surprisingly, because I think there's a lot of deck building games, and not to say there's not probably a lot of visual novels, but I do like the idea that it's I like story in games. I like the idea that games can tackle big heavy themes in the same way that books and movies can. I don't think you see a lot of it, or when it's done, it's maybe not done very well. So, like, if you're saying it is done well and it's tackling difficult subjects and it's telling them like in an intelligent way, I'm kind of interested to see how they do that from my own perspective. And again, even if it is gameplay light, I kind of like the idea of more varied storytelling in games that isn't just the hero story or the military badass or something like that. So I can substitute gameplay for something that interests me, and it doesn't always work, but because I do like games that I'll change my opinion on this depending on what the game is, but mechanics are very important, don't deny that at all. But if the game is doing something that I find personally very interesting in terms of storytelling, even if it's just mechanics, I'm more drawn to something like that over something that's maybe complete mechanically but has been done elsewhere, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
yep.
I think Eliza.
What about you, Joe?
Well, I guess that means I get to cast the deciding vote, really, don't I? It's
not if you pick mine, then it's 1-1-1.
Yeah, I'm far more interested in a Short Hike than I am Slay the Spire, and I do like my board games. I like playing with cards. I like these kind of ideas when they're transferred into like a digital game. But I also like an hour and a half of just playing a cute indie game that looks nice, feels nice, mm-hmm. and I play games to have a smile on my face, basically. Even games that are like grim and heavy, at the end of it I'm smiling because I'm like, oh my god, that was so rewarding or fulfilling. Or, oh my god, that was fun and I've got a little smirk on my face because it was or whatever, and I feel I'd get a lot more of that joy and wonder out of a Short Hike over 90 minutes than I probably would over Slay the Spire over like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So
pick of the podcast is Slay the Spire. No, it's not. Pick of the podcast is A Short Hike. Go check it out, guys. Sorry for my slip up.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Bandits podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share this podcast if you liked it. For more stuff on indie games, check out indiebandits.com and look for Indie Bandits on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.